Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are well. If you're new here, my name is Abby and I make productivity and corporate lifestyle videos. Today we are talking about this goal that I have set myself for this year, and oh my gosh guys, this goal was like the best goal I've ever set. Like, it's literally changing my life. And the goal is to read one book of interest every month. So one book a month, 12 books in the year. So a book of interest is, well, you know, it's anything that interests you really, but it's really something where you can take something away from it or like learn a little something from it. That's like self-development, business, finance, or anything that you're interested in. Like if you're more of a creative, something like to do with that, I don't know. But for me, that's what a book of interest is, anything in those categories. So I set myself a goal at the start of the year to read one of those books per month, because when I was at uni, I literally never ever got to read. Like, I just always had like some boring textbook to read, therefore never got to read cool, interesting books. And when I left uni, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much of the world that I just don't know anything about, because all I've done is read maths and like equations and like systems for like 4 years. So do you know what that was about? Anyway, set myself this goal, and we're now 6 months into the year, and I thought, okay, I need to share this with you guys because it's literally changing my life. Like, oh my gosh, like the amount I have learned. I'm a new woman. So I'm gonna go through the books I've read so far and the books I'm meant to be reading next, and just basically give you an overview, my opinion on them, and whether I recommend them. And I'm gonna tag all the books that I talk about below in the description, so if you want to find them, they'll be there. Okay, so the first book we are going to talk about is called You Are a Badass. I think that's how you say it. How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life. Now, this was my January book. This was my first book of my goal, and oh my gosh, absolutely loved it. It's aimed towards like the anxious type, the type that's kind of like self-doubting. So you know like deep down that you could do something really cool, but you're like, what about this, what about that, what if I get judged, what if I can't do it, what if like something happens, like that kind of vibe. You need this book, because that was me at the end of the year. I was like, oh my gosh, like so many things happening in my life, like, oh, can I do it? And I got this book and I was like, yes, I bloody can. So what is it about? It's basically like 250 pages of having a woman who I believe is a life coach shout at you. And she's basically just shouting at you and saying like, you know, wake up, sort yourself out, go get it. The contents of the book is to identify and change the self-sabotaging beliefs and behaviours that stop you from getting what you want, create a life you totally love and create it now, make some damn money already, the kind you've never made before. So, you know, who doesn't want all of those things? But yeah, basically it's written by Sincero, who I believe, I want to say she's a life coach. Success coach, not a life coach, a success coach. One better. And yeah, basically she is just telling you, you know, get over yourself, sort yourself out, stop crying about what other people think, stop crying about this and that, and go and get what you want. And I was like, Jen, I'm with you, I'm hearing you, I'm loving it. But this is a title of a whole section of the book, How to Get Over Your BS Already. So favourite thing about the book is I love books that shout at me and really call me out for the things that I know I do, because it like really resonates with you. Then you're like really listening, like, oh, that's me. And this book does that. Oh, and another really interesting thing about this book is she talks a lot about energy, and like I'm not very spiritual, but she talks about energy and like in kind of a spiritual way. And at first you're like, whoa, what are you talking about? But by the end of the book, it's actually like, do you know what? I'm actually with you. Like, I'm understanding this. Anyway, it's really, really cool. But the only bad thing is, because she does shout at you a lot, sometimes it's like you can't read a lot of the book in one go, because it's a bit like, whoa, can you stop shouting at me, please? So it's good for kind of like small amounts, like a few chapters at a time. I think it'd be a hard one to read in one go, just because you'd be a bit like, okay, I've just been shouted at for like 3 hours. The biggest takeaway is she talks about, in one section, how to view other people and how to interact with other people and how to like handle situations that involve people. And one of the things she talked about a lot was like, you should never kind of like feel anger or emotion towards someone's actions until you've put yourself in their shoes. And oh my gosh, this was literally a life changer. Like, you know, someone annoys you and you're like, oh, why have you done that? And you've taken it really personally and you're like, oh, I can't believe you've done that. If you just stop for a minute and like put yourself in their shoes, it's like, oh my god, I completely see why you've done that. And I no longer take personal offence. As much as it annoyed my situation, I see why you did it, and therefore I'm not like, the anger's gone and the understanding is there. She talks a lot about that, and honestly I've used that in life since, and this is what I mean, like it's life changing. Like when people annoy me, I literally think, let me think about like how you would have thought about that and why this situation has occurred. And then I'm like, I actually see it, you weren't malicious, you didn't mean to annoy me in that way, like things like that. And it's just like, oh, I'm actually, it just feels so much more at peace. Fantastic book, would highly recommend. It is linked down below. Fantastic. Okay, Next book. I am talking a lot, but I'm only deep diving into 2 of the books, and then the rest are going to be shorter. This one is The Magic of Thinking Big. This was actually March's book, and I think this has got to be my favourite one. Like, oh, I loved this book. Like, every time I read this book, I was just like, oh my gosh, love this book. Like, the things he's talking about, I'm just like, I'm here for it. So what is it about? I'm going to read you the contents. I think that's the most informative bit. It's basically about pushing yourself, being creative and thinking big to become your most successful self. But these are the things that it covers. Believe you can succeed and you will. Cure yourself of excuse-itis, the failure disease. Build confidence and destroy fear. How to think big, how to think and dream creatively. You are what you think you are. Manage your environment. Make your attitudes your allies. Think right towards people. Get the action habit. How to turn defeat into victory. Use goals to help you grow. How to think like a leader. All good stuff. Okay, so what is the good thing about this book? First of all, it's just a really enjoyable read. Like, the way the author talks, like before where I said it felt like being shouted at in the last book, that's good to an extent, but this was a really calming book. Like, you're being spoken to by a really wise person. That's like the vibe I got when I was reading it, and I was like, But overall, like, the best thing is, like, it's genuinely just filled with like so much insightful and interesting stuff. The whole time I was reading it, every time I would open the book, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, I've taken something away from that. I'm really listening and understanding what you're saying. I'm here for it. So yeah, just the good thing about this book, it's just genuinely filled with like fantastic content. The bad thing is just that it's long. Like, it's 360 pages long, which might not be long to some people, but I found this one, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to hurry up to try and get through it because it's just quite thick. But yeah, 10 out of 10, would recommend, linked below. Biggest takeaway, I took so much away from this book, but the biggest takeaway was that you are what you think you are. And so many times now, like in situations, I find myself being like, oh, I can't do that, or oh, I don't look very nice, or just saying something negative, and then I'm immediately like, nope, Abbey, remember the book, you are exactly what you think you are. So I'm like, I can do this, I look beautiful. Literally anytime I say something negative or like saying I can't do something, I immediately think of this book and I'm like, no. So those 2 books were like the game changers. Like, genuinely, like, I think about these books every single day in terms of like the way I act and like how I think and things like that. But the next books we're going to talk about are the ones that make you think. They don't really give you too many answers or like ways to be, but they make you think. So last month's book was called 0 to 1. Notes on startups or how to build the future. Now, I'm very interested in like startups and like entrepreneurship, and that's why I picked this book out. So what is it about? Well, as it says, it's basically about how to build the future, and what it does is it breaks down, like deep dives into big successful companies like PayPal, Apple, Facebook, Tesla, Microsoft, and it basically talks about like what they did, challenges, and then it talks about loads of other companies that like may have failed, like how they failed. And it's written by, I think, the man that started at PayPal, co-founded PayPal and Palantir. So, you know, this guy knows what he's talking about, and he doesn't at any point give you any answers, but he basically just like expands your thinking. So you're just there like, oh, okay, I need to think about that. The bad thing about this book is linked to the fact that because it's a make you think book, when he's talking about things, you find yourself being like, okay, so what would I do? Like, you told me, you know, what not to do or what goes wrong. How do I fix that? But it's very much like he doesn't have the answers because no one can predict the future. No one can tell you what business is going to succeed or like how to make your millions, but they can only plant the seed for you to think about that, and that's what this book does. Biggest takeaway from this book was that it did really make me think about the future. It's really easy to get caught up and be like, oh my god, I want to do this because it'd be really fun and like good to do now, but like, you know, what value is that going to have in 10 years? And this book really did kind of remind me, how big do you want to think? Do you want to think 3 years in the future, 10 years in the future? Like, what do you want? Okay, next book. Now, this was February's book, and I was really excited for this book because it was recommended by Ali Abdul on his YouTube. That's where I saw it, and I was like, oh my god, this guy knows what he's doing. This book looks great. Ordered it. It was quite expensive as well. I think it was like £23. It's quite expensive for a book. And it's called The Millionaire, Fastlane, Crack the Code to Wealth and Live Rich for a Lifetime. You know, again, who doesn't want that? But problems with the book were, it's very textbooky. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it literally looks like I'm reading through a textbook. And have you seen how much that is? Like, that's a whole textbook. So basically, I've not actually finished it. This was a February's book, but I had to stop because I thought it's going to take like 5 months to read and I won't complete my goal. So I paused it and got on with other books. I am obviously going to come back to it, but it's just a bit daunting. And also at the start, it's very boring. It's very repetitive, and it's just, he keeps saying the same thing. But the Amazon reviews do say that it starts off really slow and you could probably cut out the first half of the book and only need to read the end. So I'm hoping it does pick up. But yeah, this one I couldn't say I recommend at the moment because I've not even finished it myself, but it is just one on the list. So June's book is Start Now, Get Perfect Later, and I'm only a little way into it. I'm only probably like a quarter into the book, and starting off pretty slow, I'm not gonna lie. The blurb says, if you have a burning ambition, brilliant business idea or creative passion, now is the time to get going. Don't wait around for everything to fall magically into place. Get started, get going, and get perfect later. It's the fastest route to success. But at the moment it's only talking about procrastination in small tasks, so I'm just kind of waiting for it to, you know, build up and get good. But whilst buying this book, I did then also buy another book, accidentally, called Masters of Scale, and this basically just talks about, again, similar to the other book, 0 to 1, how big companies work, problems that go on in them. Silicon Valley legend Reid Hoffman sits down with an all-star list of visionary founders and leaders, digging into the surprising strategies that power exceptional growth. And he just looks into like Apple, Nike, Netflix, Spotify, Starbucks, Google, Instagram, Microsoft, as well as bold disruptive startups, and he creates a set of counterintuitive principles that anyone can use. So that sounds really good. That's maybe next month's book. But then another reason why this goal is literally changing my life. So not only am I taking all of these interesting things away from these books, changing the way I am, changing the way I react to things, changing the way I look at things. When I talk about it with people, some people have read really interesting books and they recommend them to me. So I was speaking to someone at work about it and they were like, oh my gosh, like I know a book you'd love. And they've given me The Power of Thinking Differently, which looks like something I would love. It explains how we can harness our unique perspectives, pool our collective intelligence and tackle the greatest challenges of our age. So this hopefully is super interesting. And then he also gave me this book, guys, which I don't know how to take it. How to Be a Star at Work. I was like, am I already not a star? Like, do you not think I'm a star at work? But yeah, why not give it a go? Could be useful. Find out how using the 9 strategies enables you to outperform people with supposedly better credentials. You know, no harm in trying. So that is my current book collection. I cannot recommend the first 2 books enough. They were incredible. The third book, The 0 to 1, was a really good book, but only if you're interested in things like that. If you're not interested in startups or entrepreneurship, you probably find it really boring because it was just very thinky. And yeah, the others are ones on my list if you need a book inspiration. But this goal, honestly, I recommend the goal. It's so much fun. Like I feel so achieved every month when I finish my book. I get so excited at the start of the month. It's like a little ritual to go to the bookshop and buy my book. I hope that you got a little bit of book inspiration from this video, and if you do read any of the books I've recommended, do let me know. Comment down below what you think of them, and we can have a little book discussion. And also, if you've got any interesting books that you think I'd like, also let me know. Comment them down below. I hope you did enjoy this video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a lovely week, and I will see you in my next video.